Hey everyone, I'm going to be doing this video from home due to the situation that we are in. So you have just watched a video on how to factor by pulling out the greatest common factor. And basically, like I said in the previous video, it is the distributive property in reverse. So you're kind of pulling out what number was multiplied through and then what would have been left in the parentheses. So factoring is kind of a form of division, but we do call it factoring. This is incredibly important when it comes to solving quadratics and things. That is the next chapter and extremely important in Algebra 2. So this is something that you want to really take your time and make sure that you know. So what I've done is just given you some more examples. I'm not going to re-explain everything, but it's more algebra examples than more the junior high. So instead of pulling out a greatest common factor on a binomial, we're going to do trinomials. And they can be as big as a 4-term or a 5-term. But basically pull out your greatest common factor, and then you're dividing each one of your terms to figure out what you have left. So this is the example I have here. So instead of a binomial, we have a trinomial of 3x squared plus 12x plus 15. So if you're someone who is that visual learner, needs to draw that same diagram that I had in the last video, what I would draw is this. Except this time, instead of 2 terms in the parentheses, there's going to be 3 terms because there's 3 terms up here. So over here is still going to be the greatest common factor. So we still have to determine what is the greatest common factor, but instead of 2 things, it's 3. So we need the greatest common factor of 3x squared, 12x, and 15. Again, let's look at the variables. I have an x squared, an x, and then no variable. So there is not a variable that I can pull out of that last term. So there will be no variable in my greatest common factor. So now we'll look at numbers. The greatest common factor of 3, 12x, and 15 is 3. So that's going to go here. Then, to figure out what's going to go here, I'm going to take 3x squared divided by 3, get my answer. What goes here? 12x divided by 3. And what goes here? 15 divided by 3. Some of you can do that in your head. Some of you, because you're more visual, are going to want to write it. So for here, that's going to be 3x squared divided by 3. The 3's will cancel. I'm left with x squared. Here is going to be 12x divided by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4, and I have that x to tag along. So that's 4x. And finally here, I have 15 divided by 3, which is just 5. So your final answer of pulling out the greatest common factor is that right there. 3 times parentheses x squared plus 4x plus 5. You're going to see a point to this later. Okay, here's our next example. This one is a cubic. It's still 3 terms, but the degree is a cubic. So same thing, I'm going to draw that diagram, my greatest common factor, and I will have 3 terms left in the parentheses because there are 3 terms up here. So again, the first thing I'm going to look for is, do I have the same variable? Well, I have an x to the third, an x squared, and then 1x. So because there are 3 x's here, 2 x's here, and 1 x here, I can for sure pull 1 x out of each one. Okay, over here, then the numbers. The greatest common factor of 5, 25, and 45 is 5. Now I can do the division. Again, I can do it in my head or I can write it out. But 5x to the third divided by 5x. The 5's will cancel. X to the third divided by x is x squared. If you have forgotten, this is the keep the base, subtract the exponent. So keep the x, 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay, here I have 25x squared divided by 5x. Numbers, 25 divided by 5 is 5. That's technically x to the first, so keep the base, subtract the exponents. That's 5x. Okay, here I have 45x divided by 5x. The x's will cancel because they're the exact same thing. They're both x to the first. 45 divided by 5 is 9. And so that is your final answer on factoring by pulling out the greatest common factor. Okay, I have one more example. Again, this is a 3-term. Again, you can go up to a 4 or a 5-term. Again, sometimes you just pull out a variable for your greatest common factor, sometimes just a number, and sometimes both. Okay, so this one, I have a greatest common factor, 3 terms up here, means I'm going to have 3 terms in my parentheses. Now I'm going to keep the signs the same. Everything I've done up to this point is addition, so I've just naturally drawn the addition. But I'm going to have my first term minus my second term, just like that says, plus my third term. Okay? So now I need to look. Is there a variable? I have 5 x's, 3 x's, and 1 x. So the most I can pull out is 1 x. The greatest common factor of 16, 24, and 8 is 8. How do I know that, folks? I just know it. So you are going to have to find that greatest common factor. I may, in your email, send all of you a multiplication table, which can help you find factors. So divide 16x to the 5th divided by 8x. 16 divided by 8 is 2. That's a 1. Keep the base, subtract the exponents. That's x to the 4th. So that becomes 2x to the 4th. Here, 24x to the 3rd. And I'm not worrying about negative because I dropped the minus. So I'm just going to keep it as 24x to the 3rd over 8x. Again, 24 divided by 8 is 3. And x to the 3rd divided by x to the 1st is x squared. 3 minus 1 is 2. And then finally, 8x divided by 8x. Well, folks, you've learned, since elementary that anything divided by itself is 1. So 8x divided by 8x is 1. So that would be my final answer. Now, if you encounter any problems that are different than these, you can certainly just email me and ask, and I can work with you on that. So hopefully that gives you a little extra help.